Do you get to see who else logged in?
No.
Oh.
Okay, we're gonna get started. We're all just probably silly nervous right now because it's our very first Vanguard webinar ever, and really our first webinar for any of the three of us to put on, so we're really excited to be here. My name is Crystal Weiss with the Educational Technology Department, and joining me are two of our Vanguard members from Cohort 2, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Lauren Blue, and I teach 1st and 2nd grade ESL at Cedarbrook Elementary.
My name is Leela Simmons, and I teach 7th grade math and teen leadership, and I'm also the Restorative Justice RTIB coordinator here at Northbrook Middle School.
Awesome. So welcome, ladies. If you want to know more about us, we have some slides with our information. Please reach out to us on Twitter. We are pushed a little far behind this time. This year we were in Houston, so we had Harvey push everything back. So we were going to be doing this probably in September, which is still far away from ISTE, but kind of closer to the beginning of the school year, so we could start talking about some takeaways that we had and things that we brought back to ISTE that we started using right away. So we're going to go ahead and go with that because I just think once we have something planned, we need to do it. And so we are going to go ahead and get going. But I'm really worried right now because it looks like nothing's happening on our screen. So we're going to pause. It's going to look weird, and you're going to see my face really big, and I'm just going to check really quick to make sure that we are actually up and running. We're trying to be proactive and have another screen set up, but I'm not sure if it's happening or not. Oh, no, we are here. Okay.
Oh, excellent.
Yay, okay, so we're going to go back to present. So there we go. All right, so we will start with Leela.
Okay, so yes, one of the things she was talking about, told us that we were going to be talking about ISTE takeaways, and I started thinking ISTE was a couple of years ago, it feels like. But I started kind of going through my notes, and I'm really glad that I did, just to kind of talk about my goal for Vanguard. I started out, and I'm still working on using technology to engage with kids on a social and emotional level. And so I tried to tailor the events that I went to kind of along those lines. One of the things that I was looking for at ISTE was some sort of program to work with kids on that level, and I'm still kind of looking for those. So if anybody out there knows of some sort of program where you can check in with kids and they can log into an app and kind of rate how they're doing, that would be awesome for you to share with me, because I'm still looking right now. I'm using Google Forms to do that. But as far as ISTE goes, one of my favorite panels that I went to was one called Digital Citizenship to Digital Leadership with George Kudos. Is that how you say his name? With George Kudos. He is also the author of The Innovator's Mindset, which was the book that I had taken out to do for Vanguard, and just happened upon his session. And then it wasn't after I had taken a selfie with him that I probably should have included in this slide. But after I'd taken a selfie with him and went back and looked at my book, I was like, wait, this guy who I'm following on Twitter is also this other guy who did this session. So it was a really, really great session. And he talked about how it's really important for us to not just encourage our students to be digital citizens, but to be digital leaders. And one of the things that really stuck with me was the fact that he said that our online presence is going to be replacing our real-time presence in as little as 10 years. And that sort of really stuck with me. And so I've got this picture of an overhead and a rocket ship down at the bottom to kind of symbolize the fact that 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was in school, overheads was the way that we got our information, and everything had to be printed on these transparencies. And as much as I like to, or lament the fact that I'm getting older now, like it was not that long ago that I was in middle school. And so you think about the fact that in the past 15, 20 years, the world has changed so dramatically, that it's our responsibility as teachers and as educators to kind of educate our kids as to how to use this technology. So our rocket ship there is kind of symbolizing the fact, I feel as though we've given kids keys to a rocket ship, or provided them access to a rocket ship, and then have just sort of said, okay, go have fun, without like letting them know, like, these are all of these, like, the purpose of this tool that you have that you can use to have fun with, but you can also use it to be professionally enhancing and educationally, academically enhancing. And so I think that really we need to kind of, it shifted my focus on incorporating technology into the classroom from like, okay, I'm going to substitute like this for tech, or I'm going to like have everybody watch this video, to really teaching kids how to use these tools to enhance their skill set, right? Because realistically, I was talking to kids today when we were talking about our iPad rollout that's happening next Tuesday.
Yay!
But the fact that we have these tools that we're using in our daily lives, and it's really great. You can go to the next slide if you wanted to. But right now, I would ask all of them, how many of you have a tablet or an iPhone, or not like a telephone of any kind, I guess, like a cell phone? How many of you have these tools? And everybody raised their hand. And I'm like, okay, and what are you using them for? Are you using them to be professionally enhancing or personally enhancing? And kind of the idea is that right now, and I told them I myself am going to sit there at night and tell myself I'm going to be in bed early, and then like it's an hour and 15 minutes later and I'm still watching YouTube videos on the Ellen or like some sort of random like nonsense, and the idea of that being okay in moderation, but that's a personally enhancing consumption based use of technology, and really letting kids understand that is awesome, but let's take it a step further and see kind of what are the tools that we can use to professionally enhance ourselves and academically enhance ourselves. Because when it all boils down to it, like we're educating our kids for, like someone said, we're educating our kids for a world that doesn't exist yet. And so we can meet them where they're at, or try and really make sure that they are up to speed enough to where when these new jobs for this technology that does, I mean, who would have thought that we would have the world in the palm of our hands with a cell phone 15 years ago, right? I don't think I had a cell phone 15 years ago. We had encyclopedias and libraries, and had to call professionals and phone books, and I think that you think, what is the world, right? What is the world going to look like in the next 15 years, and what jobs are going to be available for stuff that doesn't even exist yet? So not just teaching kids how to responsibly be citizens, but owing it to them to create digital leaders that own their online presence and own the things that they're doing, and encourage others to do the same. So, yep.
I went to the same session, and just as a parent of a middle schooler now, my daughter's in 6th grade, it was totally inspirational to me, because he talked a lot about how much good comes from social media. And I felt it when the hurricane hit, and people from Houston talk about the hurricane, probably it'll be crazy all the time, but everybody was reaching out and checking on you and reaching out on Facebook, reaching out on Twitter, reaching out on Instagram, and letting everybody know they were safe, or people I hadn't talked to in forever, friends of my parents who I don't really know but care about me because they watched me grow up, or reaching out, and I just felt that like an overwhelming sense of love and care that I wouldn't have felt otherwise. So I wouldn't have been able to get through to these people. So I think with your goal, like, it's amazing to focus on that piece of it, because the social piece is so important for our kids. Like, you hear everybody saying, oh, they don't know how to have a conversation, they don't know how to do this, and just to be able to say, okay, you know, are you doing something that's personally enhancing or professionally enhancing, and really starting to look at themselves as professionals for whatever it is going to be. So that's cool. Awesome. All right, Lauren.
Okay. My goal is to use the It's Learning platform to differentiate instruction, because I do have first and second graders in my classroom, and that seemed to be one of the most beneficial ways to make sure that each child was getting the curriculum that they needed. So my ISTE things that I attended went with that in mind, and one of the things I went to was one on blended learning, and it was really cool because they said that not only does it need to be engaged, but for blended learning to work, you need to have some sort of accountability for the kids. And so one thing I learned was a tool called quizzes, and I've always used Kahoot in my classroom, which I have on for later, but quizzes was really cool because it's student-paced, and so you can hook it up to It's Learning, and the kids take the quizzes at their own time. So it's not that rushed, I need to answer this now before my friends answer it. And it was really cool to see the students using that instead, because it was a lot more meaningful for them. They knew that accountability was there because it was a grade, and they were engaged because it was a cool quiz to do on the computers. So anytime my little ones get to be on the iPads, they're typically pretty engaged. Another really cool thing I did was ThingLink. And I used to teach in a star grade, so it kind of caught my eye for that reason, because you use it to annotate on the computer. And so they had suggested using it with the first and second graders, but as a small group setting instead, so that they weren't constantly on paper and pencil. And this way they got to see the pictures in real life, and then you could click on the picture and zoom in, and you can do a little tagline on it or put an emoji in it just to show their thinking. And so it was another way that, you know, that close reading with the younger ones is really hard for them to get their heads around because it's such a new concept. So doing it with ThingLink was a new tool that they could use that was visual for them, it was interactive, and again, it kept them engaged, so they really liked that. And then another one was using technology for assessments. Because I have such a large class size and they're all at different levels, it was more efficient for me to do my assessments with technology. And so using Padlet for KWLs, whenever we were entering a new thing, it showed me where each of my kids were, because they would get on the Padlet and they would type in what they knew or what they thought they knew. So it was great for catching misconceptions as well as catching what they do know already. And again, using it for quizzes, just for my own formal assessments. And it was a nice quick way, so I wasn't, and you can set it up so that it's reading to the kids or that it's grading it for the kids. And it was a lot more beneficial for me to be using that than to be doing paper pencil quizzes all the time.
So have you noticed that some of these things are kind of taking off in the classroom? Like, is it helping? Are the kids able to get to them, or is it kind of a slow start?
It's a slow start because second graders are new to Chromebooks, and so they have to learn how to log into the Chromebooks with their ID and their lunch number, and that in itself is a learning process.
Seventh graders are also having
that makes me feel better.
Really fun time.
That makes me feel better.
To the Chromebooks and logging into It's Learning. It's taking a minute.
So I haven't utilized these as much as I would like to yet, just because that whole process is a learning process just to get them onto the technology. But from what I have been able to use it, it's been pretty successful. So
awesome. So my goal as a coach was more about global collaboration. We have started our second year of Vanguard, and last year we had really just a handful of folks, I think 12 or 14, and then we doubled that with the next group, so, or maybe, I don't know how many we had, but we have way more now. And we always kind of struggle with, how do we get our Vanguard folks comfortable with sharing what they're doing? And I can tell you it's probably not a webinar, but these two girls we're game, and so they both said, I don't remember signing up for this, but they're here, and so I'm really glad that they are. But I wanted to learn as much as I could about kind of global collaboration and how do we get our voices out there. And part of that journey was learning to put my voice out there because I kind of feel like I need to put my money where my mouth is. I have started 100 blogs and have never finished one of them. Like, I'll start a post and then never do anything because I just don't really know what my voice is either. So I went to a lot of things that could kind of help me, and one of them was kind of a leadership academy type thing. And the keynote was talking about kind of the yes and she was talking about how if you're too controlling in your classroom and you never let your kids have any control over their own learning, then you have all the learning. So that's kind of the girl with the clipboard. These are actual pictures that I drew during my notes.
I absolutely love
then
these pictures.
If you're too chaotic, then the kids aren't going to learn either. So you need to kind of blend the two so that you have kind of a controlled chaos. Like, you can hold that fire in your hand and not just telling them, yes, you can do that, but helping them by being their collaborator, saying, yes, and what if we tried this? Or yes, and what if you did it this way? To help them know that you are a partner with them. I just feel like relationships are so important. Mm-hmm. So not having the reins so tight that they can't break free and have their own experiences, but not being so chaotic that you don't know where anybody is or what they're doing.
Right.
So just having kind of that creative chaos. And a lot of folks kind of talked about that at ISTE, where if you walk into their classroom, you might think, oh my gosh, this is a mess, but they actually really are working and the kids are super engaged. And that's kind of what we're missing if we're too controlled, is they look engaged. They're all working on the same thing at the same time, but when they finish that and they hand it to you, they totally forget it. You know, they just don't remember that they made that poster, that everything looked exactly the same as everybody else's poster, because it wasn't authentic or engaging and they couldn't share it. So the power of the yes and, like being a collaborator and letting loose a little bit in your classroom. Not hair on fire, just a little bit loose. Then one app that I just thought was super amazing was the Google Street View app, and it allows you to take 360 images on your phone. So it's imperfect, and this is a flattened out one, which what makes it look so crazy, but this is one that I took while we were at ISTE of the Aztec Theater. But you can kind of use it, she was saying, to embed hidden objects. Like, she was talking about Breakout, or the one where you have the locks. I think it's Breakout EDU. I don't know. Anyway, you have these locks and you have to have clues, and she took a 360 photo but had the clue hidden in the photo. So I thought that was really cool, because the kids are kind of engaged and really interested in this VR and wearing the headsets or looking at it and being able to twirl everything around, and then you're kind of focusing on them also on the tools. And then she shared story spheres, and you take a bunch of 360 photos and put them together, and then it makes kind of one story, and you can put music on top of it and voiceovers on top of it, and so it seemed like it would be really interesting. But at their school, everyone that went someplace was tasked with taking a bunch of pictures of the different places that they went, and then you start to have a repository of these digital field trips, so that when you end up teaching on this place, then they actually see that somebody's been there and have that one-to-one experience, where it's not like some professional person over here has been there and they can't talk to me about it, like, oh, Miss Simmons went to Las Vegas and here are some of the things that she did, or Miss Bowen went to Italy and here are some things that she did, and then you can start to have that relationship building and talking to them and saying, this is what she found interesting, what do you think about it? So it was really cool. And then finally was this about the kind of epic fail culture. So I love the epic fails or the Pinterest fails, and I thought this one was really funny. That Homer Simpson is making cereal and milk and it bursts into flames. And it keeps with our things on fire theme. But outside of school, it's kind of celebrated to be an epic failure. Like, you can't just fail. You have to epically fail, and it's big and it's funny and everybody posts it. And it doesn't have a stigma. Like, you're not sad that you failed. Like, oh my gosh, I was trying to make this souffle and it totally fell flat. Epic fail. And you keep moving. And everybody else is saying, yes, I tried the same thing and I didn't see it either. And so it's okay. So you have this really great camaraderie around failure. But in school, if you fail, it is a huge deal. It's shameful. It's horrible. I didn't make an A, or I didn't make a B, or I didn't make a C, or I just flat out failed, or I didn't raise my hand and I got the question wrong, so I'm never going to raise my hand again. And the kids are so hyper-focused on not failing in school that they're afraid to take risks and afraid to have those epic fails, which is really where they learn. Because when I made a cake once that said use cake flour, and I was like, cake flour's for suckers. I'm just going to use regular flour, and it was seriously this thick because it was too dense. I learned, if it says use cake flour, you need to use cake flour. I had a tart instead of a cake. So you learn so much from those. It's really more like experimenting, and school should be experimenting and not just, it's so heavy all the time. If you don't get it right now, then you're never going to get it, and you'd better have it. And so how can we redefine learning to make our students comfortable with failure in our classrooms? And we did not come up with any solutions, but it was just a really great conversation around what do we think that learning looks like. And we had to write down all of these adjectives and adverbs for what we thought learning looked like, and none of it was what you would normally see in a classroom. It wasn't worksheets, and it wasn't everybody doing the same thing at the same time, and it wasn't quiet. It was noisy and messy and fun and engaging. And how do we kind of get that to our students? Ideas, girls?
Well, I think, I really like this. I haven't ever heard it referred to as, the epic fail culture, and I like taking that into consideration, right? Because you have all of these awesome Pinterest fails, and I have my own, Pinterest board of Pinterest fails. And then things that have gone well. But I think that, one of the things that I just think that it's sort of a mindset, right? Oh, no, that's the custodian. We're fine. It's this mindset, right, that kind of goes along with the growth mindset. I've said mindset 15 times. I'm going to stop. It goes along with the idea of the growth mindset that or the power of yet, right? Are we going to say that we got it wrong? Are we going to say that we're not there yet? Are we going to admit defeat or keep trying? And one of the things that I've been saying in my classroom this year that I'm waiting for the phone calls from parents possibly is that I don't ever want you to be happy with 100%, because if you get 100%, then we need to move on. And the quote that I've I don't know if I came up with it or if I saw it somewhere, but the idea is that once you reach your destination, you need to find a new destination. Mm-hmm. That once you get to the goal that you set, that's awesome. Celebrate it and keep going. So it's growth on both ends of the spectrum. You have the kid who's constantly failing, who now sees that there's light at the end of the tunnel, because instead of having to go from here to here, we just need to get here, right? And so it's yeah, you're failing. Let's look at the growth. From this try to this try, are you getting further? But then the same for those kids at the top that I feel so far or so often kind of fall through the cracks at the same time. If you're getting 100%, that's great. You need a different quiz. You need a different test. If you're making 100, there's nowhere to go from there. And we're in we're in 7th grade, right? Or me professionally, I've been teaching for, God, I don't know, 6-7 years, right? If I get to the top of my game, I need to find another place where I can grow. And if I'm feeling I'm not doing what I need to do, or I'm not where I'm at, that I need to one step at a time just kind of go. So I like the whole concept of epic failures being celebrated, and then kind of moving everybody into a different mindset.
So that made me think, you were talking about your Google form to have the kids check in emotionally. Do you share that back with them? Not a whole group, obviously, or one-on-one. Are you having them graph it in any way and kind of pinpoint their ups and downs? Because I'm wondering if that would be kind of a growth thing as well, where you could, especially with middle school, where they're really kind of up and down, and that's just me noticing from my own, but really kind of up and down, like where were you high? What was going on here? And so have you done any kind of goal setting or been able to dig into that much?
I haven't. So the plan is to use Google Forms. At this point in time, we haven't gotten there yet because we don't have the iPads, and
Okay.
so the idea is to kind of, once everybody has the iPad, for I do now once or twice a week, it's like go fill out your like emotional like checkpoint or something. And I think that tracking it would be an awesome way for kids to kind of see, and maybe not necessarily to track whole group, but to just sort of come up with these little like line graphs and then put 5 of them on the board and be like, hey, this is everyone. like it is not just you, because I think that's one of the things, if I had known in middle school that I wasn't the only person who was feeling the way that I was feeling, like I think that life probably would have been a lot more, I at least would not have felt as alone in like kind of the emotional roller coaster that's just every middle schooler's like daily life, right? So I'm really excited about iPads. It should be really fun.
So are you doing anything with your littles to help them kind of track their own progress?
We have not started it yet, but eventually, once we get into the electronic part, I have a form that lets them track sort of where they're at, and we started doing, and now I can't think of their name, but our district created the proficiency scales, and it allows the kids to check in and see, and I really like that it's color-coded, because it's not, you don't know this, it's I'm almost there, or I need a little bit more help, or yep, I got it, and so it still uses that vocabulary that lets them know, like, it's okay not to get it right away. And so using those as checkpoints usually helps with my kids so that they can see where they're at.
I really like that you're using those proficiency scales kind of so early on, because I think once they get to 7th grade, it's, well, I failed. Well, I always fail.
Right.
Well, I made another 30. And like getting them to understand that like you don't get it yet. It's okay. Like on this exit ticket, you got 2 out of 4. That's all right. What did you get yesterday? I think was the first day that we decided to do an entrance ticket and actually had them, like we use kind of to do with proficiency scales, but we do in math stars for I got it, I'm good, I feel really confident in this. Checks for I'll get it with a little bit more practice, or the mistakes that I made were careless, but I understand like the gist of the concept. And then circles for like I'm not really sure what I'm doing, I will get it. Like help, I don't get it yet is kind of the vocabulary that we use. So I'm rocking this, I'll get it with more practice, and I don't have it yet, and we symbolize those with stars, checks, and circles. And so letting the kids from the beginning of class to the end of class like look and see, well, I had a check and 3 circles, and now I have a star, a check, and 2 circles, and they're both failing, right? Because if you found a percentage, you have a 25 and a 50. But here, this check is turned into a star, so I've mastered this one. This, like, circle is turned into a check, and these I still need to work on. So, kind of, I think, giving those kids that hope, because that the mindset in 7th graders is so hard. So it makes me excited knowing that you guys are doing it in 1st and 2nd grade, so that in 5 years when kids come to us, right? Like, I don't think that it will be as hard to kind of change that thought process.
I would love to have a Vanguard building and be able to just watch the kids as they went all the way through.
That'd be cool.
Like, it would be so much fun to be such a good social experiment just to see how does that really make a difference, because I think it will make a huge difference as our kids come in to school in a different environment, that by the time they get up where it's really counting, then they would be able to do those things. Like goal setting and tracking will be nothing. They'll come in and they'll be like, you know what, yeah, I did this last year and I was here, and so I need to start there this year. So excited about it. Okay, so if you have questions, feel free to email edtech@springbranchist.com, and if it's for any of us or comments or whatever, I'll make sure that it's divvied up to the correct folks. If you have an app that will help you track kind of kids'
social and emotional well-being.
Social and emotional well-being, but not just for themselves, so that their teacher can see. We would love to have that. And anything else, any thoughts that you have, we are open and we'd love to hear them. So thanks for tuning in, either live or later, and we appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.